Over 2,000 years ago, in the magnificent city of Alexandria, a child was born who would shake the foundations of the mightiest empire the world had ever known. But here's what will blow your mind. This wasn't just any royal child. This was Cleopatra VII, Philopator, a woman who would master 8 languages, command armies, seduce the most powerful men in Rome, and nearly change the course of Western civilization forever. What we're about to discover today will shatter every myth you've heard about this legendary queen. The year was 69 before Christ. The Ptolemaic dynasty, descendants of Alexander the Great's general, had ruled Egypt for nearly 3 centuries. But by the time Cleopatra entered the world, the kingdom was crumbling. Her father, Ptolemy XII, nicknamed Auletes, meaning the flute player, presided over a nation drowning in debt and bowing to Roman pressure. Most Ptolemaic rulers never bothered learning Egyptian, never embraced the local culture, and certainly never saw themselves as true pharaohs of Egypt. But Cleopatra would be different. She would be the exception that proved the rule. Here's something that will absolutely amaze you. While her siblings received the standard Greek education, Cleopatra went far beyond. She became fluent in Egyptian, Hebrew, Aramaic, Ethiopian, and Latin. Imagine the strategic advantage this gave her. She could negotiate directly with foreign ambassadors, understand her subjects without translators, and read intelligence reports her enemies thought were secret. This wasn't just impressive, it was revolutionary. For the first time in nearly 300 years, a Ptolemaic ruler could speak directly to the Egyptian people in their own language. But Cleopatra's genius extended far beyond linguistics. She understood something profound about power that her ancestors had missed. While they remained distant Greek overlords, she transformed herself into a living goddess. She presented herself as the incarnation of Isis, the most beloved deity in the Egyptian pantheon. This wasn't mere theatrics, this was brilliant political strategy. By positioning herself as a divine figure, she created an unbreakable bond with the native population. They didn't see her as a foreign oppressor, they saw her as the daughter of the Nile itself. Now let's travel to the year 58 before Christ, when political catastrophe struck the royal palace. After surrendering Cyprus to Rome, her father was overthrown by a popular revolt and fled into exile. In the power vacuum, her older sister Berenice seized the throne. Young Cleopatra watched everything unfold with calculating eyes. This was her education in the brutal realities of dynastic politics. She learned that blood meant nothing in the struggle for power, that hesitation could be fatal, and that only the strongest and smartest survived. 3 years later, her father returned with Roman military backing. His first act? He executed Berenice without mercy. Pay attention to this critical moment, because it shaped everything Cleopatra would become. She learned that power required not just intelligence and charm, but also the willingness to make ruthless decisions. Family loyalty was a luxury that could get you killed. This lesson would serve her well in the bloody years to come. When her father died in 51 before Christ, 18-year-old Cleopatra found herself thrust onto the throne alongside her 10-year-old brother, Ptolemy XIII. According to tradition, they were supposed to marry and rule together. But here's where Cleopatra's true nature emerged. From day one, she refused to be a passive co-ruler. While her young brother was manipulated by his advisors, Cleopatra seized actual control, making decisions, implementing policies, and showing a political maturity that stunned the court. But the puzzling question is, how did a teenage queen manage to hold power against experienced politicians and generals? The answer reveals her extraordinary strategic mind. She didn't just issue commands from the palace. She went directly to the people. She travelled throughout Egypt, participated in religious ceremonies, and demonstrated genuine concern for her subjects' welfare. She rebuilt irrigation systems, reformed oppressive tax policies, and invested in public works. The Egyptian people began to love her not because she was their queen, but because she acted like she genuinely cared about their well-being. Inevitably, conflict erupted with her brother's faction. The chief advisor, Pothinus, saw Cleopatra as a threat to his influence and orchestrated a coup that forced her to flee Alexandria. Most rulers would have accepted defeat, not Cleopatra. She retreated to the desert and did something shocking. She raised her own army, a teenage queen gathering military forces to reclaim her throne. This woman's determination was absolutely unstoppable. What we'll discover now will amaze you. Enter Julius Caesar, the most powerful man in the Roman world. He arrived in Egypt pursuing his defeated rival Pompey, only to discover that Ptolemy's advisors had murdered Pompey, thinking it would please Caesar. Instead, the act disgusted him. This created an opportunity that Cleopatra seized with both hands. According to legend, she had herself smuggled into Caesar's presence, rolled up in a carpet or wrapped in fine linens. When she emerged before the great general, it wasn't just her beauty that impressed him. It was her intelligence, her eloquence, her detailed knowledge of politics and military strategy. Caesar had met countless women in his life, but never one like this. With Caesar's support, Cleopatra waged a brutal civil war against her brother's forces. The conflict culminated in the siege of Alexandria, during which parts of the legendary library burned, a tragedy that still haunts historians today. When the dust settled, Ptolemy XIII lay dead, drowned while fleeing, and Cleopatra emerged as sole ruler of Egypt. She was only 21 years old, but she had already proven herself a master strategist, a military commander, and a survivor of the deadliest political arena in the ancient world. But it doesn't stop there. Cleopatra's alliance with Caesar produced a son she named Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar. This child represented her ultimate ambition, to unite the bloodlines of Egypt and Rome, creating a new dynasty that would rule the entire Mediterranean world. She travelled to Rome with Caesar, lived openly as his companion, and watched as he showered her with honours. For a brief, shining moment, it seemed her impossible dream might actually come true. Then everything collapsed. On the Ides of March, 44 before Christ, assassins' daggers ended Julius Caesar's life. Cleopatra's world shattered. Her protector was gone, her political position compromised, and her son's future uncertain. Most people would have retreated in defeat. But what Cleopatra did next proves why she remains one of history's most fascinating figures. She returned to Egypt, eliminated her remaining brother and co-ruler Ptolemy XIV through poison, and declared her infant son Caesarion as her new co-regent. She would not surrender, she would not compromise, and she would not abandon her grand vision. Here's something incredible. While Rome tore itself apart in civil war, Cleopatra transformed Egypt into an economic powerhouse. She reformed agriculture, expanded trade routes, invested in infrastructure, and made Egyptian grain indispensable to Rome's survival. She understood that economic power could be just as effective as military might. The Romans needed Egyptian wheat to feed their people, which gave Cleopatra leverage that no army could provide. What happened next would determine the fate of the ancient world. In 41 before Christ, she received a summons from Mark Antony, Caesar's former ally who now controlled Rome's eastern territories. Cleopatra prepared for this meeting like a general planning a decisive battle. She sailed to meet him on a ship decorated with gold, purple sails billowing in the wind, dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, surrounded by attendants costumed as mythical figures. This wasn't transportation. This was theatre. This was psychological warfare. Mark Antony, a man who had seen every spectacle Rome could offer, stood speechless at this display of majesty and power. Their alliance would reshape the Mediterranean world. Together they dreamed of an empire that united East and West, where Caesarion would inherit both Rome and Egypt, where Cleopatra's vision of a new golden age would finally become reality. But this dream would attract the deadliest enemy of all, Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, who saw in their alliance a threat to everything he was building. The stage was set for a final confrontation that would end an era and begin a new chapter in human history.